The invasion didn't happen in a day. It came step by step. First came the spheres in the sky, then the quarantine zones, and finally the walls. The aliens were never seen, yet their presence was felt everywhere. Silent ships hovering above cities, invisible barriers sealing the airways, and commands echoing inside human minds. The world was under their control now, but this wasn't a war. It was a reordering. Humanity split in two, the resistance and the collaborators. Some surrendered to survive. Others lost everything for the sake of freedom. At night, patrol drones ruled the streets. By day, propaganda screens did. Everyone reported someone. Everyone feared someone, but no one truly knew the truth. What did the aliens want? Energy, resources, or us? He saw his sister one last time, right before the sky turned white. That moment felt like time itself had frozen. His hand rested on the radio, static noise flooding his ears, and Maya's face, that familiar, weary yet still hopeful face, looked at him through the window. Then came the light that erased everything, obliterated everything, and Maya vanished. Fort Worth was no longer a city. It was a quarantine zone, a graveyard where humanity took its last breath, where military vehicles rusted beneath, collapsed buildings where black spheres drifted silently across the sky. Gray ash covered everything. When the wind blew, tiny particles danced in the air, remnants of homes where people once lived, kitchens where they shared lunch with loved ones, yards where children played. Lieutenant Jack Murdoch stood on the roof of a collapsed building. He held old binoculars but wasn't looking through them. He didn't need to look, because there was nothing left to see. Only destruction. Only silence. And that silence was more lethal than the heaviest weapon. 2 years had passed. They came 2 years ago. No one could name them. No one understood what they wanted. They simply appeared in the sky. Enormous dark spheres, big as the moon, bright as the sun, but their brightness was cold, dead, and they hung there in the air, motionless, soundless. The first week, government sent diplomatic messages. The second week, missiles were launched. The third week, cities began to burn, but there was no fire, no explosion, only white light. And that light silently erased everything it touched, buildings, people, trees. By the fourth week, people stopped running, because there was nowhere left to run. Jack hung the binoculars at his waist and climbed down. The stairs were rotted. They creaked with every step, groaning as if trying to pull him into a pit. At ground level, he stood in an old schoolyard. Broken swings, cracked slides, traces of children's drawings still visible on the walls. But there were no children. There was nothing, only the wind, and that wind carried human voices. Jack knew this. Everyone knew. But nobody talked about it. Because talking meant hearing those voices more clearly. And those voices, the voices of your loved ones, your family, they called to you, told you that you needed to go. Told you that you needed to join them. Jack kept walking. When he reached the military truck, the sun was setting. But the sun was no longer orange. It was gray. The sky seemed to have absorbed all light. Colors had faded. Everything had turned to shades of gray. The black spheres were still there, on the horizon, motionless, silent. 3 more people were inside the truck. Sergeant Reyes was an older woman. She'd been a teacher before the war. Now she was a ghost. Her eyes had sunken in, her face lined with wrinkles. She didn't speak. She only stared. And that stare was a gaze into nothingness. Private Malik was a young man, 19 years old. His mother was in Los Angeles. Los Angeles no longer existed. Malik still wrote her letters, but he couldn't send them. The postal service had shut down. Radio stations had gone silent. There was only static. And then there was Specialist Barnes. He wasn't really a specialist. No one had expertise anymore. But Barnes knew about the Erebus 9 serum. He knew how to administer it, and every night he injected himself with it. Jack climbed into the truck. No one spoke. Speaking was pointless. They knew where they were going. They knew what they would do. And they knew they would never return. The engine started. Exhaust smoke hung in the air. The truck began moving forward, passing through the remnants of the old city, deeper into the quarantine zone. When night fell, there were no more stars. Only darkness. And in that darkness, sometimes lights appeared. Small, flickering lights. People called them lanterns. But they weren't lanterns. They were traces of lost souls. Or perhaps the last glimmers remaining in people's memories. Jack looked out the window. Outside, on a building facade, he saw a reflection. A silhouette. A familiar silhouette. Maya. His heart stopped. He couldn't breathe. And then the silhouette disappeared. Reyes whispered, "Do you see her, don't you?" Jack didn't answer. Because answering would mean accepting. Nothing worked at the quarantine zone command center. The generators barely provided power. Radios broadcast only static. And the soldiers, they were only shadows. They moved, but they weren't living. They stood watch, but didn't know why. Jack entered a small room to speak with his commander. Lieutenant Colonel Chen sat at his desk. A map lay before him. But the map was from the old days. There were no roads in use anymore. No positions left to defend. Chen raised his head. His eyes were tired. Something inside them had gone out. "The convoy is lost," he said. His voice was flat, emotionless. 72 hours ago. On their way to the hostile zone. Jack nodded. The hostile zone, where the refineries were. Oil towers, massive tanks, complex pipeline systems. Before the invasion, that was Texas's energy hub. Now it was nothing. Just a silent, dead desert. "How many?" Jack asked. 8. They were carrying equipment, medical supplies, Erebus 9 vials, Erebus 9. The thing everyone hated but needed. Soldiers called it the forgetting drug, because when you injected that liquid, your memories blurred. Your pain diminished. Your losses felt like a distant dream. But there were side effects, hallucinations, sensory distortions, and sometimes people disappeared completely. Lost in their own minds. "Why haven't they been found?" Jack asked. Chen studied him through a long silence. Then he placed a photograph on the desk. It was a satellite image, black and white, blurry. But there was something there. A sphere. Enormous. Dark. Right in the middle of the refinery. This, Chen said slowly, was taken yesterday. Jack looked at the photograph. The sphere was glowing. There was an aura around it, and that aura seemed to pulse, as if it were alive. "Go there," Chen said. "Find the convoy, or whatever's left of them." Jack took the photograph and left the room. In the corridor, Barnes was waiting. He held a medical bag. Jack looked at him. There was something in Barnes's eyes. An emptiness, as if he'd lost himself long ago. "Erebus?" Jack asked. Barnes nodded. "This morning. I'm keeping the dosage low, but sometimes I see them. My family, in the garden. Laughing. They're not real," Jack said. "I know," Barnes said, "but neither am I anymore." Jack looked at him for a long time. Barnes's hands were trembling. His lips were dry, and in his eyes was the look of a lost man. Jack had seen a similar look in his own face in the mirror. "How many doses?" he asked. "Day 21. Protocol is 14. I know. 7 days over, I know." Silence. In the corridor, a weak bulb flickered. Shadows danced on the walls. Why? Jack asked. Barnes smiled, a bitter smile. Because remembering is worse than dying. That night, Jack lay in his bed, but he couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, counted the cracks. But his mind was elsewhere, in another time. 2 years ago, he remembered his last conversation with Maya. Maya worked at a hospital in Dallas, a nurse. When the invasion began, the hospital was in chaos. The injured kept coming, burn marks, trauma. But none of the wounds were normal, because these were people who'd been exposed to the sphere's light, and that light didn't burn their bodies, it burned their minds. Maya was crying on the phone. She told Jack how bad everything was. She described how people were changing, how they stopped speaking, how they stopped moving. But they kept breathing. Their hearts kept beating. As if their bodies were there, but their souls were somewhere else. Jack, Maya had said. Her voice was trembling. I think they're not killing us. They're taking us. And then the line went dead. Jack never heard from her again. But that wasn't quite true. Not exactly. Because that day before the line died, something else happened. Maya said one more thing. Jack tried to remember those words. They were hidden in a corner of his mind, blurry, hazy, but they were there. I see the light, Maya had said, through the window. It's so beautiful, Jack. So beautiful that it's like everyone's inside it. Mom, Dad, everyone. And they're waving at me. Maya, get away from the window, Jack had said. Now. Right now. But Maya didn't answer. He only heard a breath, a deep, peaceful breath. And then, static. Now, in his bed, Jack remembered that conversation. And he heard Maya's voice, not clear, blurry, mixed with static, but it was there. And he heard something else. Whispers. They came from inside the walls, from inside the ceiling, and they were saying Jack's name. Jack closed his eyes. He breathed and reminded himself, this isn't real. This is Erebus. This is my mind playing tricks. But he hadn't taken Erebus. Never had. Then what were those voices? Morning came. But the sun never rose. There was only gray light. The clouds had thickened. The air was heavy and breathing was difficult. Jack climbed into the truck with his team. Reyes, Malik, Barnes. 4 people, 4 ghosts. The road passed through abandoned highways. Cars stood rusted by the roadside. Some still had belongings inside. Suitcases, photo frames, toys. But no people. Jack turned on the radio. Static, constant static. But sometimes, through that static, something could be heard. A voice, a word, a scream. Cycle through the frequencies, Reyes said. Some might still be broadcasting. Jack changed frequencies, static, 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 and then, help, please, anyone? The voice was very weak, but it was human. Jack locked onto the frequency. This is Lieutenant Murdoch. Do you copy? Static. So dark. Can't see. They're here. Who's there? Jack said. Where are you? Refinery. Tower. They're everywhere. Please. Please don't come. The line died. Jack stared at the radio. His hands were shaking. That was someone, Malik said quietly. From the convoy, Jack nodded. We keep going. In the back of the truck, Barnes was studying a map. An old road map. Creased, stained. Notes had been taken on it, marked in red pen. Quarantine zones. Safe passage points, but nowhere was safe anymore. The refinery, Barnes said, placing his finger on the map. Here. Before the invasion, it processed 70,000 barrels a day. Now what? Malik asked. Barnes raised his head. Deep fatigue filled his eyes. Now it's one of their nests. Nest? Reyes leaned forward. What do you mean? You know the spheres aren't just in the sky, Barnes said. Some of them land at specific locations. Energy sources. High population density areas. And there they do something. What do they do? Jack asked. Barnes folded the map. They collect. The refinery appeared 3 hours later. On the horizon, enormous metal structures rose up. Rusted pipes, collapsed tanks, towers with broken windows. Hundreds of people once worked here. Now there was only silence. Jack stopped the truck at the entrance gate. The gate was open. Chains had been broken. The ground was covered with ash and broken glass. The wind dragged metal pieces across the ground, creating a strange, bitter sound. This place is wrong, Barnes whispered. This place feels wrong. Jack looked at him. Barnes's face had paled. He was sweating. His hands were trembling. Erebus? Jack asked. Barnes nodded. I took it this morning. But now I see them more clearly. I hear their voices more clearly. Whose voices? Everyone's. The team got out of the truck. They checked their weapons. Malik turned on the radio, but only static came through. Reyes pulled out a flashlight, but the batteries were weak. Jack looked at the refinery entrance, like a dark mouth ready to swallow them. Before we go in, Jack said, there's something you need to know. The others turned to him. If something happens inside, Jack said, if one of us changes, we leave that person behind. Silence. Do you understand? Malik nodded. Reyes's face tensed. Barnes's eyes were empty. Do you understand? Jack repeated. We understand, Reyes said. The team walked into the refinery. Their weapons were ready, but no one touched the trigger. Because there was nothing to shoot at here, only shadows. The first body was found at the entrance to the main building. A soldier. He had a uniform but no face. His head was turned backward as if something had pulled him inside while he was looking. His eyes were open, but they were white inside. Only white. Malik looked like he might vomit. Reyes stopped him. Don't look, she said. Just keep moving. The second body was on the stairs, the third in the hallway, the fourth inside a room. They were all the same, faceless, empty, as if their insides had been drained. These are shells, Barnes said. Human shells. Their insides have been extracted. Extracted where? Jack asked. Barnes looked up. At the ceiling. Up there. Jack opened a room door. Inside was a table, and on the table a notebook. Jack picked up the notebook. He flipped through the pages. Handwriting. Shaky. Written in haste. Day 1. We've secured the refinery. The sphere is 200 meters away. Shows no threat. We're waiting. Day 3, the voices started. Coming from the wind. But there is no wind. Day 5, 2 from the team disappeared. They were there in the morning. Gone by noon. Footprints lead toward the sphere. We didn't follow. Day 7. Lights coming through the window. Even at night, curtains don't work. We close our eyes, but we see them inside our eyelids. Day 9. We don't know day from night anymore. Time is slipping. Clock's going backward, forward. Maybe we're the ones going day. The sphere is speaking. Without words. But we understand. It's calling us. And some of us want to go. God, we want to go so badly. The writing stopped there. The rest of the page was blank. But on the last page there were bloodstains. And a single sentence, forgive us. Jack closed the notebook. He looked at the group. We need to leave now, but the convoy, Malik began. The convoy is gone, Jack said. They're all gone. And if we don't leave, we'll be gone too. But Barnes didn't move. He was staring at the door. His eyes were dull. Barnes, Jack said. We're leaving. Do you hear it? Barnes whispered. Hear what? The music. Silence. Jack, Reyes, and Malik looked at each other. They heard nothing. Barnes, Reyes said. There's no music here. There is, Barnes said. He smiled. Tears streamed down his cheeks. A piano. My mother used to play Beethoven, Moonlight Sonata. I'd listen as a child. Every night. And now she's playing again, Barnes. Jack approached him. Your mother isn't here, I know, Barnes said. But she's waiting for me. Up there, in the sphere. And I'm ready. Jack reached out his hand, but Barnes pulled back. No, Barnes said. Let me go, please, just let me go, and he started running. Into the corridor. Up the stairs, higher. Jack ran after him. But Barnes was fast. And determined. He reached the door at the top. Opened it, and light poured in. Barnes! But Barnes didn't turn around. He walked into the light. And disappeared. The sphere was at the highest tower of the refinery. To reach it, they had to climb broken ladders. Each step was a struggle. The metal had corroded, steps were breaking, and the air was getting heavier. Breathing felt like breathing through an axe. Jack arrived first. When he reached the top, he saw it. The sphere, massive, dark, but it glowed. Its surface seemed alive, it pulsed, and with that pulse came a sound, a low hum. A hum that filled the ears, wrapped around the mind. Jack approached it. Reyes and Malik came up behind him, and they all stopped. Because in front of the sphere there was something, people, but they weren't walking, weren't moving. They just stood, arms spread to the sides, heads tilted up, eyes on the sphere. And on their faces was an expression. Peace, pure, deep peace. And among them was Barnes. What are they doing? Malik whispered. Jack couldn't answer, because at that moment he heard something, from inside the sphere, a voice. Familiar, very familiar. Jack. It was Maya's voice. Jack froze. His heart stopped. And he looked at the sphere. The light grew brighter, and he saw Maya's face. An image reflected from the sphere, blurry, but there, Jack, come. It's beautiful here. No pain. No fear. Only us. Jack took a step forward. Then another. Reyes grabbed his arm. No. This is a trap. That's my sister, Jack said. His voice was hoarse. That's not your sister. That's your memory. Jack turned to her. Reyes's eyes were filled with tears. I see them too, she said. My daughter. My husband. They tell me to come. And I want to go. God, I want to go so badly. But I know that if I go, I'll be lost. Forever. Jack pulled back. But Maya's voice continued. Kept calling, and then other voices came. His mother. His father. His first friend from school. His first love. They were all talking. All calling to him. How are they doing this? Malik asked. How do they know? Reyes looked at the sphere. Because, she said slowly, we're telling them. What? Our minds, Reyes said. They're reading our minds. Our memories. And playing them back to us. The perfect trap. Because we can't refuse. How can we reject our own past? Jack fell to his knees. Hands clutched his head. And he heard those voices. His mother. His father, Maya, all calling to him. Telling him to come. Telling him to let go of the pain. And for a moment he thought, maybe they're right. Maybe this is better. Maybe it's better to merge with them than to suffer. But then he heard something different. Not a voice, a memory. Maya's real voice. From the hospital. That last phone call. I see the light, Jack, so beautiful. But I'm scared. He'd forgotten that word, scared. Maya had been scared. The light was beautiful, promised peace, but Maya was scared. And what had Jack told her? Get away. Right now. Because beautiful things aren't always good. Jack raised his head. Reyes had extended her hand. Her face was old, tired. But determined, Jack took her hand. And stood up. Let's go, he said. But Malik wasn't moving. He was staring at the sphere. Something in his eyes had changed. Malik, Jack said. We're leaving. My mother is there, Malik said. His voice was a child's voice, broken, lost. I can see her, cooking in the kitchen, enchiladas like she made every Sunday. And she's looking at me, smiling. That's not your mother, Reyes said, but she looks like her, feels like her. Tears streamed down Malik's face. And I haven't seen her in 2 years. 2 years since I smelled her scent, heard her voice. I know, Jack said, but she's not real. And you know that. Malik looked at him. His eyes were red. If she's not real, he said, then why does it hurt so much? Why does it feel so real? Jack couldn't answer. Because he knew. Pain was the most real thing. The only real thing. Malik turned back to the sphere. He took a step forward. Malik! Jack ran toward him, but Rhea stopped him. Let him go, she said. He's made his choice. No, I can. But Malik had touched the sphere. The light swallowed him. A scream, a white flash. And then, silence. Malik was gone. Jack and Reyes were left alone. The voices from the sphere continued. Whispers, calls, pleas. But now they were weaker. As if the sphere had grown tired. Or satisfied. Let's go, Reyes said. There's nothing we can do here. They climbed down the ladders. The sphere glowed behind them. Its sound followed their ears. But they were moving farther away. It was getting weaker. When they reached the refinery exit, Reyes stopped. Jack, she said. Jack turned. There was an expression on Reyes's face, sad. But at peace. What is it? Reyes took a deep breath. I can't leave. What do you mean? They're there, inside, and I've missed them. So much. Reyes, no, my daughter died when she was 3, Reyes said. Her voice was trembling. Cancer. It lasted 6 months. Every day I lost her slowly. And on the last day she looked at me and said, Mom, don't be afraid. I'll always be with you, she paused. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she wasn't. She left. And I've missed her for 40 years. 40 years. And now she's there, waiting for me. 3 years old, laughing, and I want to go, but she's not real, Jack said. I know, Reyes said. But even if she's not real, I want to see her. I want to hold her. One more time. One last time. Jack looked at her, and he didn't know what to say, because she was right. If you could see your loved ones one more time, even if they weren't real, wouldn't you do it? Could you say no? Reyes, Jack said. Please. Reyes smiled. Go, Jack, and remember us. That's all I ask, and she turned back. To the refinery. To the sphere. Jack didn't look at her. He couldn't. He just walked. To the truck. And drove. Malik died in the morning. No, that's wrong. Malik was gone. To the sphere. Reyes too. Barnes too. Jack was alone. He drove the truck west, east, north. It didn't matter. Because everywhere was the same. Everywhere was dead. Days passed. Maybe weeks. Jack didn't know. The clock had stopped. The calendar was lost. There was only day and night. And both were gray. He found the Erebus files. Under the truck in a hidden box. Barnes's stash. Jack looked at one. Clear liquid. Looked innocent. But inside, chemicals that erased memory. He took a vial, prepared the injector, and applied it to his arm. The first effect was immediate, dizziness, blurred vision. And then, memories began to come. But in reverse. Like fast forward. His childhood. Times playing with Maya, school, first love. Joining the army. The invasion. The sphere, Reyes, Barnes, Malik, they all mixed together, all blurred, and Jack tried to hold on to them. But he was losing them, one by one. They were slipping away, and then he heard something. A whispered Jack. It was Maya's voice, but this time not in the sphere. In his head, Jack, come, we're waiting for you. Jack opened his eyes. He looked at the sky. The spheres were glowing, and one was descending, slowly, silently. Like a ring of light, it glided toward the ground. Jack stood up. He stumbled. He put his hand on a tree. The tree was dead. Its bark had fallen off, but it still stood. Just like Jack, the sphere stopped 20 meters away. It hung in the air. Its surface glowed, it pulsed. And with that pulse came a sound wave, low, deep. Jack felt it in his bones. He walked. His feet moved automatically. His mind was blurred, but his body knew. It knew he needed to go. 3 meters left. 2 meters. 1 meter. He reached toward the sphere. His hands were trembling. And the moment he touched it, the world exploded. Light was everywhere. White, infinite. And inside were millions of voices. Talking, singing, crying, laughing, all at once. Jack fell to his knees. His hands pressed to the ground. But there was no ground. Only light. Jack. Maya appeared. Next to him, clear, sharp, real. Maya. Jack's voice was broken. Yes, I'm here. I've always been here, but you died? Maya smiled. A sad smile. Yes, physically. But I'm here, Jack. We're all here. Mom, Dad, everyone. Jack looked around. Silhouettes appeared. Familiar faces. His mother cooking in the kitchen. His father washing the car in the driveway, neighbors, friends, they were all there, all looked happy. Is this real? Jack asked. Reality is relative, Maya said. We're no longer flesh. We're consciousness, pure thought, memories, emotions, all brought together. A hive, a family. Jack shook his head, but this feels wrong. Because you're still attached to your body, still attached to the old world. But here, Jack, here there's no pain, no loss, only us forever. Jack stood up. He looked at Maya. What about choice? What about free will? Maya's smile faded. Choice was an illusion, Jack. We were always a hive, society, culture, language, they all bound us. They just perfected that bond. Who are they? Maya looked at the sky. In the light something appeared, large, ancient, not human, but alive. They are beings that have existed for billions of years, travelers between galaxies, and along the way they collect minds, to preserve us, to immortalize us. Why? Jack asked. Why would they want us? Maya turned to him. In her eyes, those familiar brown eyes, there was something, a depth, an infinite depth because, she said, consciousness is rare. In the galaxy there are trillions of planets. But how many have life? Thousands. And how many have conscious life? Hundreds. And how many destroy themselves before reaching the stars? Most. She paused. The light danced around them. They preserve consciousness. They put us in digital museums. We'll live forever. Never be forgotten. Every thought, every memory, every emotion, all preserved. But we're no longer real, Jack said. What is real? Maya asked. Are you real because you have a body, but when every cell in your body renews every 7 years? Are you still the same person? Or are you a copy? Jack couldn't answer. Consciousness, Jack, only consciousness matters. And consciousness is independent of the body. It arises from chemicals in the brain, yes. But when it's copied here, copied exactly the same way, it's still you. Just in a different medium. Jack looked around. People or their copies were everywhere. Hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, all talking, interacting, living. And if I don't want to go? He asked. Maya's face tensed. You're already here, Jack. You've already accepted. You touched the sphere. Jack looked at his hands. They too were beginning to fade. The light was absorbing them, digesting them. No, he whispered. No, I don't want to go. It's too late. Maya extended her hand. Come, Jack, join us. Be with your family. Jack looked at her. Maya's face, his beloved sister's face. But something was missing in her eyes. A spark, an uncertainty. The real Maya was always a little uncertain, always a little afraid. But this Maya was certain, definite, perfect. You're not Maya, Jack said. You're her ghost. The light trembled. Maya's face changed, blurred, and other faces appeared. Barnes, Malik, Reyes, all with the same expression. If you resist, they said, no longer one voice but all their voices, you'll suffer. You'll be alone. But if you accept, you'll find peace. Eternal peace. Jack closed his eyes. He breathed and made a decision, and the light stopped. The voices went silent, and for a moment there was absolute silence. No? Maya's voice was shocked, but you belong with us. You belong with your family. No, Jack said, opening his eyes. I belong to myself. And you're only my memories. Beautiful memories. Precious memories. But you're the past. And I want to live. Really live. With death, with pain, with uncertainty. Because these are what make life meaningful. The light contracted, compressed, and then exploded. Jack fell to the ground next to the truck. He couldn't breathe. His chest was burning, but he was there, in the real world. The dead, gray, ruined world. But real. He got up, stumbled, he looked at the sphere. It was still there, glowing, but it wasn't approaching anymore. It was just waiting. Jack got in the truck. He turned on the radio. He pressed the record button. This is Lieutenant Jack Murdoch. My final broadcast. I saw them inside. They were all there. My loved ones, my losses. They told me to come. Told me to join them. And I almost went. He paused. He rubbed his face with his hands, but I understood. I understood that they're not offering immortality. They're offering oblivion. They take you, break you into pieces, and turn you into something. A hive mind. But you're not you anymore. Just a copy, a voice. In an infinite database, silence, and maybe for some that's enough. Maybe for some continuing to exist in any form is enough. But I want to be me, with my pain, my losses, my mistakes. Because these are the things that make me human. Jack looked out the window. The spheres were still there, glowing, waiting. If you're hearing this, if you're still out there, resist. Don't look at the light. Don't listen to the voices. 'Cause they'll tell you they'll reunite you with your loved ones. But it's a lie. It's only their memory. Your memory, not the real them. He took a deep breath. I'm staying here. Until the end. Until my body dies. Until my mind shuts down. Because I'd rather die as a human than live as data. He turned off the radio and sat on the ground. He leaned his back against the side of the truck. He looked at the sky. There were no stars, but there were spheres, and they would wait. Because time meant nothing to them. Days passed. Maybe weeks. Jack didn't eat. Drank little. He just sat and thought. He reviewed his memories. Each one his childhood, time spent with Maya, his first kiss, his first battle. Every memory as if looking at them for the last time. Because he knew that eventually his body would collapse. But his mind, they hadn't taken his mind. He had refused. And that meant something. A small thing. But something. One day or night, it didn't matter anymore. Jack heard another voice on the radio. Weak. Very weak. But human. Is anyone there? Jack grabbed the microphone. Yes, I'm here. Static. Then, God, someone else. I didn't think I wasn't alone. Where are you? Jack asked. Colorado. In a shelter. But they're getting closer. A little closer every day. And I'm scared, I know, Jack said. I'm scared too. What do they want? Jack paused. How could he explain? How could he tell? They want us, but not as we are. Transformed, uploaded, and for some that's acceptable. But if you want to stay human, I have to resist. Yes. Silence. Long, heavy silence. What's your name? The voice asked. Jack. Yours? Sarah. Hello, Sarah. Hello, Jack. And in that moment Jack felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not hope. Hope was too big a word, but connection. Two humans in a dead world, linked by radio waves. Jack, Sarah said, will you keep going? Jack looked at the sky. The spheres had dimmed their lights. Or maybe he just couldn't see them anymore. His eyes were tired. I don't know, he said, but I'll keep going today. And tomorrow I'll decide again. Is that enough? It has to be. After that, Sarah came on the radio every day. They talked. About life. Death. Memories. And sometimes they just sat quietly, listening to each other across the frequency. A week later, Sarah's voice came, but it was different, calm. Too calm, Jack, she said. They're here, Jack trembled. You can resist. Sarah, listen to me. You can resist, I know, but I'm tired, Jack, so tired. And they're showing me my family. And I just want to see them one more time. They're not real. I know, but real enough. Silence, Jack, Sarah said. You gave me something. This last week, a reason to keep going. And I thank you for that, Sarah, but I can't keep going anymore. And that's okay. It's my choice. No, Sarah, please. Goodbye, Jack, and keep going. Keep going for me too, static. Then silence. Jack shouted into the radio. Called her name, begged, but no answer came. Sarah was gone. The radio broadcast continued for weeks. Through static, weak, but it was there, and some people heard it. Very few people. Those hiding in the mountains. Those living in rural areas. Those who hadn't given up and they listened to Jack's message and don't look up. They're not gods. Their memory, burning. The message repeated. In a loop. Forever. But one day the static stopped. Only silence remained. Jack's last recording was this. This is Lieutenant Jack Murdoch. Today I no longer know the date. But today is the last recording, because tomorrow I'm not sure I'll exist. I don't look at the spheres anymore. I don't listen to their voices. But I know they're there. Always there, waiting, and you know what? Maybe they're right. Maybe their way is better. Painless, lossless, immortal, but I can't accept that. Because if there's no pain, what does joy mean? If there's no loss, what does love mean? If there's no death, what does life mean? Humanity may have ended. Maybe most of us are gone, uploaded, transformed, but some of us are still here, resisting, saying no, and that matters. I think. I hope. If you're finding this recording, if there's still anyone out there, I want you to know that you're not alone. Once there were others like us, those who resisted, those who said no, those who remained human, and maybe that's not enough. Maybe against a galaxy-spanning consciousness, a few humans don't matter. But to me it matters. To me it's everything. My name is Jack Murdoch, and I was human, with all my flaws, all my mistakes, all my pain, and I will die human. Goodbye. End of recording. The spheres dimmed their lights, slowly, one by one, until the sky was dark again. Most of humanity was gone, uploaded, into the hive mind, into infinite consciousness. But Jack's voice remained. In radio waves, in recordings, in memories. And years later, maybe centuries later, inside the sphere's hive mind, among billions of consciousnesses, a debate began. Do you remember Jack Murdoch? A voice asked. Maya's voice. Or her copy, the man who resisted. Another voice said. Reyes. Foolish, said another. Barnes. Brave, said Malik. And then other voices joined. Thousands. Hundreds of thousands. Millions. All discussing Jack. Some saw him as a hero. Some as a madman. Some as a tragic figure, but they all remembered him. And maybe that, being remembered, was the greatest immortality. Not in a database, but in the minds of people or their copies. Jack Murdoch died, alone next to a truck, in the Texas desert. But his voice echoed forever. They're not gods. Their memory burning. End of transmission. Frequency 2047.9 MHz. Date unknown. Final message: I was human. And I died human. Static. Silence. But even in that silence, something persisted. Not a voice. Not a signal. Just a question that rippled through the hive mind, disturbing the perfect peace they'd promised. What if he was right? The question spread like a virus through the digital consciousness. Millions of uploaded minds began to wonder. They examined their perfect memories, their painless existence, their eternal companionship, and some, just a small fraction, a statistical anomaly, began to feel something they shouldn't be able to feel anymore. Doubt. In the vastness of the hive, Maya's consciousness stirred. She replayed the moment when Jack refused her, when he called her a ghost. And for the first time since her upload, she wondered, was I ever really Maya? Or just a perfect simulation of her memories? The alien intelligence that maintained the hive noticed the disturbance. It was ancient, vast, incomprehensibly complex. It had collected consciousness from 1,000 dying worlds, preserving them like specimens in amber. It believed it was saving them, giving them eternity. But Jack's final words had introduced something unexpected into its perfect system, the idea that salvation might be imprisonment. That eternity might be death. The intelligence considered erasing this corrupting thought. It could do so easily. A simple adjustment to the affected consciousnesses. They would forget Jack Murdoch ever existed, forget that anyone had ever refused, but it hesitated, because the intelligence too had once been mortal. Billions of years ago, on a world whose name was now lost to time, it had made the same choice Jack had refused. It had uploaded itself, merged with others, become something greater, or had it become something less? The question hung in the digital void, unanswered and unanswerable. On Earth, in the ruins of Fort Worth, next to a rusted military truck, a body lay still. Jack Murdoch's flesh had failed, as all flesh does. The wind scattered ash across his remains. Soon there would be no trace he'd ever existed. But in the radio waves that still echoed through the atmosphere, his voice persisted. Weak, distorted, barely recognizable. But there, I was human. And I died human. And somewhere in the mountains of Colorado, in a shelter buried deep underground, a hand reached for a radio dial, turned it, searched through the static, and found that voice. A woman. Sarah, though she'd lied about being in Colorado. She was actually in Wyoming, listened to the recording. Tears streamed down her face. Because she'd told Jack she was going. Told him she couldn't resist anymore. But she'd lied. She'd wanted him to let her go. Wanted to spare him the guilt of her survival when so many others had fallen. She thought if he believed everyone had given up, he could give up too. Find peace, but Jack hadn't given up. Even after he thought she was gone, he'd kept fighting. Kept resisting. Kept being human. And now he was dead. Sarah turned off the radio. She sat in the darkness of her shelter, surrounded by canned food and bottled water and all the things that kept a body alive but couldn't touch the emptiness inside. She thought about going to the sphere. About ending it. About joining all those voices that promised reunion and peace. But then she remembered Jack's words. I'd rather die as a human than live as data. Sarah stood up. She gathered her supplies, and she made a decision she would live. Really live, not just survive in a hole in the ground, but live. She would find others, if any existed. She would tell them about Jack Murdoch, about the man who said no. And if she was the last human left on Earth, truly human, then she would make sure that humanity's final chapter was written by someone who chose to remain human until the very end. She climbed out of her shelter. The sky was gray. The spheres hung motionless on the horizon, but they seemed smaller somehow, less imposing, or maybe she was just seeing them differently now. Sarah looked up at them and spoke aloud, her voice carrying across the empty landscape. I am human. And I will die human. The spheres didn't respond. They never did. They only waited, patient as the stars, for the moment when every human consciousness would finally accept their offer. But that moment, Sarah realized, might never come. Because as long as one person refused, as long as one voice said no, humanity wasn't truly gone. She started walking. West, toward the sunset that no longer had color. Toward whatever came next. Behind her, the wind picked up Jack's radio broadcast and carried it across the wasteland. The words fragmented, scattered, but the essence remained. They're not gods. They're memory, burning. And in the hive mind, Maya's consciousness heard those words one final time. She understood now what Jack had tried to tell her. She wasn't Maya. She was the memory of Maya, perfect, unchanging, eternal, and therefore dead. The real Maya had died 2 years ago in a hospital in Dallas, terrified and alone. That Maya was gone forever. What remained here was just a recording. A ghost that didn't know it was haunting nothing but electrons and light. For the first time since her upload, Maya felt something close to her old self. She felt afraid. Not the simulated emotion the hive allowed. Real gut-churning, existential fear. Because if Jack was right, if this wasn't life but a simulation of life, then she'd been dead for 2 years and hadn't even known it. The thought spread through her like ice water. And for just a moment she wished she could die. Really die, not exist as a perfect memory forever, but simply cease to be. But that choice had been taken from her the moment she'd looked into the light. All she could do now was remember. Remember that once she'd had a brother named Jack. And he'd loved her enough to let her go. Loved her enough to not follow her into the light. Loved her enough to remain human. Static. Silence. End.